from the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Well, good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. We've got a busy show for you this morning. Yesterday, couldn't broadcast when, the world of a CISO, never-ending challenges and activities. So we're pre-recording this morning's show. Very excited. We've got a lot of stories to cover, so let's get right into it. But before we do, let's supercharge ourselves with a beautiful espresso. My double espresso, whatever you're drinking, coffee cup, cheers. All right, gang, let's get right into this. There's a slew of vulnerabilities in Aruba and Avaya switches that's exposing enterprise traffic to networks. Armis has already warned that uninterruptible power supply products made by Schneider Electric subsidiary APC are affected by a critical vulnerability that can be exploited. The root cause of the UPS vulnerability is named TL Storm by Armis, and was related to the implementation of the Mokana popular TLS library Nano SSL. Further analysis showed that other vendors also introduced similar vulnerabilities in their product due to the misuse of the same library. Those are Aruba switches that are affected by two types of critical vulnerabilities, tracked as CV 2022-23677 and 23676, while Avaya devices are affected by CV 2022-29860 and 29861. Each of these vulnerabilities can allow for an RCE on the impacted devices. Another RCE vulnerability that affects Avaya devices has not been assigned to CVE yet due to the fact that it impacts a discontinued product. So in the life products that go out of style, typically also in legacy systems where they're the most vulnerable. So vulnerabilities have been found. There are a few workarounds for this as well. So make sure you get these vulnerabilities taken care of. The Avos ransomware variant is now using a new trick to disable antivirus protection. According to researchers who disclosed the new variant of the AvosLocker ransomware, and disables AV solutions to evade detection after breaching target networks by taking advantage of unpatched security flaws. The first sample observed from the US with the capability to disable a defense solution using a legitimate Avast anti-rootkit driver file, according to Trend Micro. In addition, the ransomware is also capable of scanning multiple endpoints for the Log4j vulnerability using Nmap and NSE script. AvosLocker, one of the newer ransomware families to fill the vacuum left by Revel, has been linked to a number of attacks that targeted critical infrastructure in the US, including financial services and government facilities. The ransomware as a service affiliate has been around since July of 2021, and now we're actually seeing them take advantage of a slew of things, including disabling the AV with legitimate files in order to take advantage and launch their ransomware attack. So keep your eyes out for that. And again, good rule of thumb, if anything disables your AV or moves it, then get it. Maybe you shouldn't have it to begin with. So just as a general rule of thumb. Azure reports that their database for PostgreSQL flexible server, privilege escalation, and RCEs was informed Microsoft of a coordinated vulnerability disclosure of an issue in the Azure database for the PostgreSQL flexible server that could result in unauthorized cross-account database access in a region. By exploiting an elevated permission bug in the flexible server authentication process for a replication user, a malicious user could leverage the improperly anchored regular expression to bypass authentication, gain access to other customers' databases. This was mitigated within 48 hours. There are a bunch of solutions for it, so including a patch and workarounds, get those taken care of. GitHub says a recent attack was highly targeted. GitHub says that the recent cyber attack that resulted in the cloning of private repositories was highly targeted in nature. The incident involved the stolen OAuth tokens issued to third-party integrators. Those were Heroku and Travis CI. We spoke about this several months ago, which were used to download the private repositories of a dozen organizations. The two continuous integration systems help organizations automate the scanning of newly introduced code changes to help identify vulnerabilities and malicious snippets before they enter production. The system used authentication tokens to facilitate the automation process and the reason cyber attack happened after such tokens were compromised OAuth tokens. Let's have a conversation about identity. We know that attackers sooner or later are going to go after identity. They do that by phishing. They do that by stealing tokens, by retrospect token, refresh tokens, access tokens, validation token, authentication tokens. So this attack, highly targeted, very sophisticated, something to keep in mind. The DoD continues to unsurprise me. A California man was convicted last week for his role in a multi-million-dollar phishing scheme targeting the U.S. DoD. The man, Serkan Oğantur, 40 of Northridge, California, but from Turkey, was convicted on 6 counts, including conspiracy to commit wire fraud, mail-in bank fraud, the use of an unauthorized access device to commit fraud, and aggravated identity theft. Shows that from June to September of 2018, Oğantur and conspirators abroad targeted various DoD vendors to trick them into accessing phishing pages. They then changed banking account information and diverted $23.5 million to a false bank account. DoD paid it. He faces up to 30 years in prison, 10 more. How about paying the taxpayers our money back? I'd love nothing more than $23.5 million back so that it could be used to better this country and not some foreign criminals. NSO and Pegasus back in the news after a report from Spain on Monday that the cell phone of the Prime Minister and Defense Minister were infected last year with a Pegasus spyware that's only available to government agencies in an unauthorized operation. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's mobile phone was breached twice in May of last year, and Defense Minister Margarita Rubel's device was targeted once the following month. According to Felix Bolanos on Monday, he's the presidency minister. He said the breaches resulted in a significant amount of data being obtained, and that report detailing the hacking have been transferred to Spain's National Court for further investigation. Again, whoever used Pegasus was another government. Espionage has been going on for as long as countries had borders and people had devices or just spoke in a town square. So it's just another story on Pegasus, another story of how this actually takes place. And finally, China, back at it. We've been hearing so much about Russia. Well, China is caught exploiting popular antivirus products to target the telecom sector, according to Sentinel Labs. A Chinese-aligned cyber espionage group has been observed striking the telecom sector in Central Asia with versions of malware like ShadowPad and PlugX. Sentinel-1 tied the intrusions to an actor it tracks under the name Motion Dragon, with tactical overlaps between the collective and another threat group referred to as Nomad Panda. The ShadowPad, labeled a masterpiece of privately sold malware in Chinese espionage, emerged as a successor to the PlugX in 2015. SecureWorks also attributed ShadowPad's activity clusters to Chinese nation-state groups. China continues to be a threat in that vector. The Motion Dragon's TTPs involved the abuse of legitimate antivirus software belonging to Bitdefender, Kaspersky, McAfee, Symantec, and Tread Micro to sideload ShadowPad and Talisman on compromised systems by means of a technique called DLL search order hijacking. The hijacking DLL is used to decrypt and load the final ShadowPad or PlugX payload that resides in the same folder as that antivirus executable. Persistence is achieved by either creating a scheduled task or a service, and thus they've got a foothold. The hijacking of security products is just the latest on behalf of the Chinese in their effort to continue to do what they do best, which is hijack IP and continue to be a global threat from cybersecurity perspective, as well as many others. Folks, that's it for our show today. We'll be back with a lot more tomorrow. Until then, have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.